Hello everyone. Between the 11th and 13th of June, my friends Jedediah, Yumi and myself Kenneth participated in the GMTK 2021 Game Jam, which is a 48-hour game making event hosted by Mark Brown, who runs the Game Makers Toolkit YouTube channel. Every year, game devs from all around the world gather to create what they can in 48 hours, and this year we saw about 6,000 entries in total. Overall, we had a load of fun, and although our game was extremely well received, believe it or not, we'd actually failed to put in our core mechanic into the game at all. Now without further ado, let me tell you how that turned out. The jam kicked off at 2 AM and the theme was joined together. Our plan was simple. We were to come up with an idea and then sleep on it. We quickly went to work brainstorming and throwing out whatever idea came to mind, no matter how silly it sounded. We kept our discussions up late into the night and we were definitely getting exhausted. It took us a while, but we eventually settled on a concept where you are a battery wielding person who is joined together to a bunch of battery workers, and the aim is to keep them recharged while they help you collect pickups. It was kind of a really rough idea, and the game loop was hardly fleshed out, but it was already 5 AM and we decided to go to bed and just go with it to save time. The next morning, we split our work into 3 main tasks. I would be doing the art and animation, Yumi would be working on artificial intelligence and gameplay, while Jed would be working on tethers and gameplay as well. I went straight to work on creating the visuals and I quickly came up with the Babybot asset. I usually start with a silhouette sketch, followed by some blocking of features, then shading and touch-up. I came up with a few iterations, but eventually settled on a version on the left, as it was the most appealing and bubbly. I did the same thing for the player character, and I designed it to be a cross between an old Nokia phone and some form of a nun. I then separated the layers so that we could use the battery as a form of a diegetic UI. For the environment, in order to save time, I went to download a free tile set from the Unity asset store by Cainos, who you should really be checking out as their work is really amazing. I'll leave a link in the description below. After some sprite edits and building, within no time I managed to get the environment up. I focused on making a simple base level so the programmers could visualize the space we were working with. From there, since most of the main art was already done, I went ahead to rig the characters using a skeletal rig and painted the skin weights before quickly banging out the animation states for all the characters. By this time, Jedediah had already coded out the tether mechanic, and Yumi had already worked out the Babybot AI. And honestly, the game right now was actually already looking pretty good. However, there was a major problem. You see, since the start of the jam, we never got about coming up with a core game loop for our game. The current gameplay was actually way too simple. Essentially, the player would run around, press E to charge the Babybots, and then run back to the platform. And that was it. We definitely needed to come up with a stronger core game loop that would be thematically fitting and engaging, so it was back to the drawing board. We decided that running around pressing E wasn't engaging enough. We then added a projectile that the player could shoot to lasso 2 Babybots together. This would form a physical connection in the form of a wire that directly joined the Babybots together. When joined, charging one would then charge the rest of the connected Babybots. This way we could provide some sort of player agency and the gameplay would feel a lot more thematically in line and engaging. So while the programmers went deep diving in code, I continued to develop the miscellaneous systems such as dialogue and set up the main menu with an inbuilt tutorial. For the main menu, I wanted to integrate a feature where players could only press the play button if they stood on a charging platform, which required them to learn all the core controls of the game, with a built-in exposition by the Babybot that you helped. But things still weren't looking so good. We were 3 hours to submission, and our core mechanic wasn't even in the game yet. The rope physics were just too hard to iron out, and we were constantly left with buggy interactions and noodles strewn all over the floor. It was here where we decided that this was not going to work. We had to make the hard decision to remove the entire wire mechanic from our game as we bum rushed the polishing. Soon enough, it was an hour left to submission, and our game was pretty much done. We had dialogue, polish, and a complete game flow. The audio and the sound effects were complete, and we realized that we had to submit ASAP. We sent our game out for last minute playtesting. The problem, however, was that since we didn't manage to put the core mechanic of physical wires into the game, the feedback was actually pretty poor. People felt like the game had no direction, and they mostly weren't sure what to do to join the Babybots together. They were right though, because we didn't even have the mechanic in the game. I figured out that the problem was not with the missing mechanic, but with the framing of the game. I decided to then halve the game timer and reduce the length of the game. Following that, I increased the difficulty by making the Babybots drain faster. We then submitted it without a second thought, and it was a miracle. The feedback that we got for the game was great. I was actually pleasantly surprised by this outcome, and I spent a bit of time trying to figure out how this happened. You see, by halving the game time and making the Babybots die faster, we essentially changed the framing of the game from a drawn-out strategy game to a short and sweet bullet hell shooter. In summary, this game jam was a successful and enlightening experience. If I had more time, I would definitely try to incorporate more thematically fitting and engaging gameplay. But the biggest takeaway from this is that user experience is actually extremely important. Sometimes short and sweet is all you need, and reframing the experience can help you deliver your message better. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time, and yeah, thanks for watching.